Dom couldn't hear us. I think it's his janky headphones, but he's always, he probably got him out of a gumball machine at the supermarket or something, or stole him off of an airline or some other place like that. But yeah, so anyway, this is not the smartest guys in the room. And as you can tell, we're not always the smartest guys in the room because there's only one of us here. The other one is trying to figure out how to work his phone right now. And we got Dominic Damasky coming back in. I've invited him up on stage. I'm surprised he's not automatically up on stage. Says, there he goes. We'll make him a moderator. Okay. Dom, can you hear me now?
Yes, we do high quality shows here. I can hear you. I can see you, Debbie. We've been off a couple weeks. I guess you should reboot things and like see if everything's working first. But we don't do that. We go live. We go live. We just do it. So what was Debbie saying? I missed it, Tom.
Well, Debbie and I actually didn't talk. I was in the middle of just finishing up what I was saying, and I was about to ask Debbie a question, and then you popped back in, so we didn't actually get a chance to chat. But she did come back up. She did come up on stage to try to help me out while you were figuring out how your phone works.
What are you saying?
I said, is your phone still on vacation?
Maybe so. Maybe I'm gonna lay it down like this. Maybe it's on Bahama time or something like that.
Well, I
Yeah.
think if you can't hear me when you move it, I would bet that it's a problem with the headphones.
I think, sometimes when we go out and film bikes and hikes, we got those lapel mics on us and stuff like that. And sometimes afterwards, I'll like wrap the cord up a little bit. And Dave sees me wrapping the cord. And like if it kinks at all, like down by like where it goes in, he will rage on me and like I'm running over and like take it out of my hand. So maybe I got a kink in my hose or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing with like what happens with uh thin little electronic wires like that, right? Is when you wrap them really tight around something like, and by tight, I mean like in a small, very small loop. Over time, that puts a lot of strain on the wires, and when they come to like connection points, like where the jack goes in and stuff like that, you can end up the wire actually just breaks inside, and it can happen inside of the insulation. You can't even see it, but the wire's broken. So that happens a lot with those, and that's probably why Dave goes crazy on you to stop you from doing that because those
Dave
mics
doesn't
are
like it.
not
He doesn't
cheap.
like it. Three, two, 3, 2, 1. This is not the smartest guys in the room. How's everybody doing today? Reset, second try. We're back, Tom, Debbie, everybody watching. We've been gone a couple weeks. That means we might do things wrong. We might mess up, but as of right now, you don't know that the first 5 minutes went wrong, even though, even though you're going to hear it. So, had we done this right, this is the energy it would have sounded like. So, Tom, we're talking about making an impact. Although you were swimming around the world, I want to know this. You said you were in your Ironman. And one of the things I found most interesting about this Ironman, this was the first time you swim in an ocean. So you swim, is it an ocean or is it like a sea? Which one is
Well, it's technically the Mediterranean Sea,
it? Okay.
but it's
All right.
connected to the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying they're very similar, a sea and an ocean.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the first time I'd ever done a saltwater swim,
Okay.
right, in an Ironman, right? So, like, the swims in every other race I've done have been, well, yeah, have been either in a river or in a lake, where they're predominantly freshwater. The swim in Ironman Maryland, the water's technically brackish, but it's not like full salt water. Like, it's not
Okay.
ocean salt water, right? Like, which is what the Mediterranean is. The Mediterranean's actually saltier than the Atlantic.
So was it the waves or the salt water that made it, or both, that made it tougher?
So the salt water didn't necessarily make it tougher, although getting a little bit of salt water up your nose is a lot more uncomfortable than getting a little bit of fresh water up your nose. Just
Okay.
throwing that out there. That's why I said in one of my posts that I put up that I accidentally neti potted with the Mediterranean and gave it a 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. So yeah, so that was uncomfortable. The other thing too is along with any sort of when you're in a very large body of water, right? Like the Mediterranean Sea is a very large body of water. When you're in a very large body of water, you get swells, right? Which you don't get in lakes, right? Or in rivers. Generally speaking, you get like what they would call like surface chop, which is just basically, sort of, small waves, small disturbances on the surface of the water, just kind of kicked up by wind and stuff like that. But in an ocean, you get big swells. Like, as you're swimming along, basically you're going up and down, which, because the swells are kind of spaced out, they're not steep, that's not a big deal. The problem that it causes, or the difficulty or the challenge that it creates when you're doing a swim like in an Ironman, is you're swimming 2.4 miles. And so you're following a route and you're swimming around buoys that they've set out to kind of mark the course. And when you're down in between swells, when you're down in the trough in between swells, you can't see any of the buoys. So like you have to time your sighting to be on top of the swells so you can actually see the buoys, so you know you're going in the right direction, right? And then kind of swim through the trough and then sight again at the top of the next swell. And that timing takes a little bit of getting used to, and it's not something I've ever had to do before because I've never had an ocean swim in an Ironman. And so I've never had to try to time my sighting to the swells. And I wasn't great at it because it was the first time I'd ever done it. Right. And I don't know, most of the time with anything, the first time you do something, you're not great at it. Right. So that was definitely a challenge. So between the salt water and that, and then I got unexpectedly, and I don't know how much it had to do with the salt water or what, but I got a really bad friction like rub on the back of my neck from my swim skin. And so that was super uncomfortable for the rest of the day. Like I just had a big raw patch on the back of my neck. And it finally like, took about 5 or 6 days before it really kind of like cleared up. But I mean, I had it was like road rash, but it was on the back of my neck. So yeah, so that was uncomfortable. So it was a challenge.
Okay. And well, one, I found it super interesting, which brings me to a point of saying yes to trying new things, just in general. So meet so many interesting people, have so much more to talk about, have these life challenges that I'm sure when things get hard on another day, you can remember swimming out in the ocean, choking on salt water, and think, yeah, I can probably get through this trip to the bank, or what if Isla crying when you're like trying to put her to bed at night. Well, and just how long does it take to swim? Then we're moving on. How long does it take to swim 2 miles in an ocean?
Depends on who you are.
Okay,
So for me, it took about an hour and a little over an hour and 20 minutes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. It took me about an hour and 20 minutes to swim 1 mile in a lake one time. So I see you did double the time in an ocean, kicked my butt. So okay, not we're talking about impact. Debbie, you're up. So when you when you write a book, when you get up on stage, do you set out to make an impact or do you just make an impact? What do you think, Debbie?
Oh, that's a great question. First of all, Tom, congrats on completing yet another Ironman. Kudos to you for number one. I'm impressed that you even tackle it, and number two, that you complete them. I mean, that's a big thing. And Dom, congrats to you for going to the Bahamas and working on your tan. I know how important that is for you. So, your question about impact. That's an interesting one. I think we always want to, things that we do and say, we want it to be meaningful and impactful. Do I purposely set out that way? No. And I'm going to use this as an example. Most of my posts that I do on social media, they tend to be positive or promoting self esteem. And I've told this to people who have complimented my post that truthfully, I am the first one that needs to see it. So, yes, while maybe I may be trying to want to make an impact for others, I need that message and impact for me just as much as I think maybe somebody else might want it. I don't know if that answers it or not, but I'm landing my plane.
Thank you, Debbie. And it appears you have a dog on your lap while you're landing your plane. Somebody that you're making an impact on there as well.
Yeah, he's not on my lap. He's down below, but yeah, he doesn't like it when I'm not paying attention to him. So yes, he can be kind of needy. He's a cutie pie, but he can be kind of needy.
Well, thank you, Debbie. Thanks for all you do as well. And one day I was on a call and I'm on camera right now with Tom, if anybody's watching live stream, and my dog came down to my office and it's a pit bull terrier mix and it's older now. And I'm like, oh, I'll show the dog on camera. And I go to pick the dog up and it was like, meh. And I like must have touched it in the wrong place or like heard it somehow. And whoever I was talking to was like, "You are the worst person ever. Did you just hit your dog?" I'm like, "No, I just tried to pick it up and show it on camera, and that did not go well." So, okay, Tom, that's my. I'm gonna sidebar this whole topic today. So, hey, Debbie, and back to my tan in the Bahamas. Not only did I get tan, but I set out a goal to climb the rock wall because I went on a cruise about a year ago and I had a broken rib and couldn't climb the rock wall. So this time, although I have a broken finger, it's actually a tendon, but I still managed to climb the rock wall. So not only did I get tan, I climbed the rock wall as well. And Debbie.
We lost you
Tom
there
doesn't
for a
seem
second,
impressed with
Tom.
my
Yeah,
wall
yeah. Now you're back.
success.
But good for you for climbing that rock wall. I don't think I could attempt that.
Tom swam in the ocean. I climbed the rock wall. Debbie says I got a tan. Her dog's on her lap. We're off the rails here. We're trying to talk about impact, but no matter what we do, we can't get to impact today. So making a difference. So Dr. Touch, uh, Tom, ask a good question to Dr. Tachi because you got to get us back on the rails.
Okay. All right. I'll try. All right. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of context and a little bit of a ramp here, Dr. Tachi, so we're not just throwing you into the deep end right off the bat as soon as you get in. So I proposed the topic of impact to Dom when we were setting up the link last night for this episode of Not the Smartest Guys in the Room, and it was front of mind because I went to an event yesterday. It was actually at the UN, had nothing to do with the General Assembly. It was actually probably a bad thing that it was there on the same day as the General Assembly because it was a mess to get into. And actually, the organizer of the event, the CEO of the company that was hosting the event, I spoke to her towards the end of things yesterday, and she said, "We are never doing another event here. This is the worst." So anyway, went to this event, and the event was by an organization called the Impact Lounge, and it was all about creating impact through storytelling, using storytelling as a tool to essentially change and shape behavior and to push kind of cultural and societal culture and society in a positive direction, right? And so there were a variety of attendees at this event. It was the idea of it was to really bring sort of storytellers, right, or filmmakers together with what she called change makers. So nonprofits, NGOs, social good organizations, social good brands and businesses, content creators. So there were some YouTubers there. If you've ever seen this show on YouTube, Career Ladder, he was there. He was interesting, pretty funny guy. So anyway, so I went to this event yesterday, and so this idea, this concept of impact and how we all kind of create impact in our own ways in our interactions on a daily basis through a variety of through our work, through our personal endeavors, through our speech, how all of these things kind of come together to A, acknowledge that we all have an impact on the world around us, and B, how do we then sort of think about the impact that we have and how do we use that impact for good, that sort of privilege, that opportunity to create that impact. How do we use that in a positive direction? And so I guess the question for you, Dr. Tachi, is have you thought about the impact that you create on the world around you? And how do you try to frame the work that you do so that that impact moves the world in a positive direction?
Good morning and welcome back. I definitely think about the impact. I think about the implications too. Before I do anything, I'm always thoughtful of what I'm doing and how it will help someone or help a group of people and how I try to do nothing that will hurt them, but that's because I think so thoroughly about impact as well. Impact slash implications as well. I definitely want for everything I do for through media, for example, to uplift, to educate, to inform, hopefully to entertain. I wanted to have value. We talk about that in this world at all times about having whatever you create, adding value. And so that's really what I aim to do.
Well, and it was how do you try to ensure that the impact that you create in the world moves it in a positive direction?
Okay, so again, That's my hope that it does. How do I ensure I listen to people? The whole beauty of live streaming, of creating content that's pre-recorded, of podcasting is to have, and then of having a network that out amalgamates all these different forces, different people, different creators, is to create some sort of impact. Because I know I can't do that on my own. So my theory is, well, let's try and do that together. And I'm carefully trying to curate voices that do that type of thing. So I listen to what people say. You enjoy this, or yeah, you have an issue with this. And so I'm like, okay, let's talk it through, because simply because somebody has an issue with something doesn't mean I'm going to change what I do. But it is helpful in understanding the way I'm perceived, or any of the creators may be perceived. So I think the biggest thing for me is listening to what people have to say about the work that I'm putting out there in the world, either my own or other people's. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely makes sense. Makes sense, and appreciate that. Dom, what about you? How do you, as a publisher, right? Obviously, you help bring other people's work and your own, right? Because you're
Yeah.
also an author. Help bring people's work out into the world and share it with folks. So, how do you try to ensure that? Uh, do you think about the impact that that creates, and how do you try to ensure that that impact moves things in a positive direction, which is obviously sort of a core value of yours and your brand and your business?
Yeah, thank you. And one, I want to go back. Dr. Todd, she gave a brilliant answer, and I love the work she's doing, and that's why I think me and you surround ourselves with people that are out making a difference, people that are doing good, people that are making people think, trying to elevate humanity. I set out with this goal. I say I try to share inspiration, positivity, and smiles every day. And 20 years ago, people might have thought that was cheesy or nerdy, or this guy's what do they call that? He's too positive. It's corny, something like that. But I set out with this mission: inspiration, positivity, smiles every day. And I figure if I can add one smile to the world, at the end of the day, I win. So I try to keep it sincere. I try to keep that mission pure. So today, if Debbie leaves here, or Dr. Tachi leaves, and they're like, hey, I was on Not the Smartest Guys today and got something out of it, I smile. My day is better because of that. Okay, so it started out as me. And so you asked the question about publishing. So first I was like, well, I'll try. I'll try to get out and I'll do this on my own, this strong mission of me alone. Well, maybe my story doesn't resonate with people. Maybe I'm not the messenger. Maybe I can't get far enough. What if I help other people share their story? What if I help them share stories that elevate humanity, stories that make a difference, stories that make them want to hold the door open for somebody else? And so that's really the mission became, not me. Let's support people like Dr. Tachi, people like Tom, people like Debbie that are out making a difference. And so I surround myself with those people. I try to keep the mission pure every day. If I can help one more person, that's sometimes to the detriment of money. And I got to watch that. I'm still trying to make a living, but it seems that it all works out. If I keep my mission pure, stories that elevate humanity, it seems like I'm pretty happy and can also pay the bills too. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I like that too. I appreciate that. I think, one of the things you said towards the end there is like, you have to sometimes remind yourself like, hey, wait, I am running a business. I do have bills to pay. I do need to think about that. I kind of find myself in a similar position sometimes where I want to do things that are not necessarily in my own sort of financial best interests all the time, right? But I, like you, often will say, screw it, I want to do it. I know it's the right thing to do, and I'll do it anyway. And what I find is more often than not that sort of kind of pays dividends in the long run, right? Like that someone else ends up, that leads to someone turning around and going, hey, you know what? I've got a friend, or I've got a client, or I've got this business, and we need help doing something here, or we need this, or like they'll recommend me to someone, and then all of a sudden I've got work out of something that I thought was going to be a loss leader for me, has suddenly turned around and brought in new clients, as a result. And so I think it's really important to not only, have a set of values and be guided by that set of values, but to be transparent and open about those values that you follow and that guide you, because that will, in the long run, sort of create opportunity for you down the line. And it'll also mean that the impact that you have through your work is aligned with your personal goals and your vision for the world, the future, at least even in a small way, right? And I think that's one of those things that a lot of people overlook, that, they think, oh, well, impact is for, like, people who have, massive audiences, or impact is for people who are on TV, or impact is for, best-selling authors, right? And that's not true. Every single one of us has an impact on the world around us every single day, right? We interact with other people, right? We deal with we interact with the environment around us, right? Those interactions create impact. And so if you have sort of a core set of values, if you have a mission that you've adopted, right? Dom's got his mission, my mission to humanize the world of business, right? That mission is kind of always in the back of my mind, guiding the conversations that I have, the way I interact with other people in business. At that event yesterday, the conversations that I was having with other attendees there, and some of the speakers, similarly guided by that idea that I want to use my skill set to help humanize the world of business, and maybe collaborating with some of those folks that were in that room with me yesterday is a way to do that. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important to have that sort of that mission, those core values, recognize them, allow them to sort of guide your behavior and the way you interact with the world, and be transparent about them, right? Own those values unabashedly. And I think what you'll find is that it will ultimately attract like-minded people to you, to your brand, to your business, and to your mission, and it'll increase the impact that you have over time. So yeah, so that's what I think. Jason, welcome to the intimate party we're having today with not the smartest guys in the room. It's a small room. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, so as expected, it's a small gathering when we first come back. But Dom was traveling, I was traveling, and so we took a couple of weeks off, and here we are. Getting towards the end of September, getting into the fall, and we're talking about impact. So, Jason, over to you. Do you think about the impact that you have in the world around you, and how do you try to make sure that impact moves the world around you in a positive direction?
Well, I can't control what happens outside of me in the world, but I can work on the control of the inside. And the inside, a lot of times, has to remember that we have to integrate and intermix with different people for different things. Trying to do everything all by yourself and saying you're self-made is just ridiculous. But every time you do something good or bad, it's going to make an impact. It's going to create a vibration. It's going to do all these things that some people, they call the woo-woos, talk about. But I really believe that, everything is created, and it's not an accident. Everything happens for a distinct reason beyond my own reasoning. So whether I'm talking to somebody like, hey, I need to talk to you straight, or whether I'm talking to someone who, let's just say, needs someone to have an endearing ear and empathetic or compassionate, to a degree. It's just like we act so much, but we resolve so little nowadays, it seems like. But the way that I create value is like every time someone's talking to me, I look them in the eye if I can, or I ask them questions exactly about what they're talking about. And that creates a level of harmony and sometimes a level of expansion. So I'll just leave it at that.
Good stuff, Jason. Glad to see you again. Glad you're back, man. I was just thinking about this spark and making a difference, and I pulled up a Tupac quote on this. Tupac, we can quote Tupac here. He says, "I am not going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will be the spark in the brain that will change the world." So who knows? You write something, you put out a video, it's this content is out in the world, and you may think you didn't. You may think only one person read that or one person saw it, but maybe it's the person that treats their children a little bit differently because of something you said or did, or a piece of content you come out, and now their child goes on to do great things. So that when you put out a good piece of content, something that can make a difference, it makes a difference for generations and generations. It isn't a one-time thing. That's a positive energy you put out in the world that never stops. All right. Speaking of positive energy, it's that time of day. It's that time of day. Only positive things, only thumbs up ever come from Tom's thumbs. Sometimes it's a thumbs up, sometimes it's a thumbs down. We'll see. Pop culture, it's things going on. So today, Tom, I was away. I was out on a cruise. I used to think that cruises were like this like secret society or like weird stuff going on, and maybe I'm back in. So I want to know what Tom thinks about cruises and cruise culture. Is it thumbs up or thumbs down? Are they a cult or is it good?
All right. Well, so I have some. I'll take you on a little bit of a journey. So I've been on 4 cruises. The first cruise I ever went on was with my family. My grandfather took the family on a cruise to Alaska for his wedding anniversary to my step grandmother, and that was years ago. I think I was maybe 21 at the time, so it was quite a while ago, and that was fun because that was purely like I'd never been to Alaska before at that time, and it was kind of an adventure. It was interesting. I'd never been on a cruise before, so it was all sort of new and fun and exciting. And then my first job out of college, working in TV, was on a television show that took place on a cruise ship. It was actually a dating show called Shipmates, and it was a 3-day or 4-day, on depending on which cruise you were on, blind date on a cruise ship. And it was crazy. But because of that, I went on 3 cruises working on that show. And those were on Carnival Cruise Line. And we got to see the sort of inner workings of the cruise ships, right? We got a little bit behind the curtain, a peek behind the curtain. And my experience on those cruises sort of made me less excited about cruises going forward, right? So I think what has ended up happening, and part of the cruise culture thing that you were talking about, is like I get going on a cruise when it's all about sort of the destination. I don't get going on a cruise to be on the boat, right? It's sort of like going to one casino in Vegas, right? And and just being trapped in that casino for like 4 days with a whole group of strangers. Like, and that doesn't appeal to me at all. And what I mean by that is like when you look at what's happening on the cruise ship, right? During those times when you're just out at sea and you're not in port and you're not getting to do sort of things or going on adventures or checking out new places, it's very Vegas, right? There's shows, there's restaurants, there's bars, there's gambling, right? There's a casino floor, there's shopping, right? All of those things. It is a Vegas casino put on the water, right? When you look at it. And I'm not a big fan of that, right? Like that does not hold any allure for me. I don't really understand gambling or gaming. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't find it exciting. I've been to Vegas at least a half a dozen times, and I've never even put a quarter in a slot machine. It just doesn't hold any appeal to me. A lot of the sort of the shows and stuff are a lot of like fluff and not a lot of substance, right? Like it's just a lot of pageantry without much interest behind it. So after you see it once, you're kind of like, okay, great, I'm over it. It's sort of like the fountains in front of the Bellagio in Vegas. It's like, okay, that was cool for 30 seconds. Now what? Right. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening. The restaurants are usually very, very mediocre for the price, right? Like they're overpriced and kind of under deliver on the food. The buffets are fun for like a day, and then you realize it's like all the same food over and over again, and that kind of loses its appeal, right? So like if it was a thing, like if I could go on a cruise and like only ever spend maximum 24 hours on the boat at a time, right? And the rest of the time was spent, going to different places, experiencing different things, going on excursions, etc. I might be interested in that. But if it's a cruise where the entire thing is about being on the boat, I'm out. That gets a thumbs down, right? And honestly, I don't understand the sort of the culture around that, the idea of like just being on the boat and like having fun on the boat holds no appeal to me. I don't want to like. I get that it's fun for other people, right? In the same way that I can understand that some people might think it's really fun to go to Vegas every year, but I don't get it. It's just not for me. It's not my thing. And so I, not meaning to yuck anybody else's yum here, but like, cruising gets a thumbs down for me.
You heard it here. You came out hot against cruises. Now I'm like, what do you call that when somebody's turned around? Like where after two, you went on four, but after two, I'm coming around on it. Like I might be joining the cult, and like I go on the ship. There's karaoke. There's shopping. I watched the Steeler game on the last one I was on this past week. So I'm sold. I was in with all these people. I met a guy that became a Steelers fan from Australia. So come on. I don't know, Tom.
I, I
I don't
think
know if I like this.
I think they call it flip-flopping, Tom. I think that's what they call it.
They call growing. I got a message here. Somebody does not like your stance on cruising. They said it was very, very down. A personal message came in hot on cruises. Okay, we're back to impact. We're talking about impact today. Does your message have a cruise in the world? You put out a message and you hope it has an impact. And what do you do when I'm going to Dr. Tachi first on this? What do you do if you put out a piece of content that ends up with a negative impact? Like, let's say you didn't mean, let's say you said something mean about cruises, like Tom just did, and people get mad at you. What do you do then, Dr. Tachi? How do you deal with it or should you deal with it? Is it just like, hey, this is my thought, this is my belief? You have your belief, I have my belief. So what do you think about that? You put out a piece of content, whatever it is, and people don't agree with
That's fine.
it.
I mean, you cannot agree. That's, I think, what actually makes the world a beautiful place, that we don't have groupthink. Why? Well, there is groupthink, but that people think differently about things and are okay with expressing them. My thing is, whenever I put out a piece of content, I try to do it from the full context of things. I always mention, hey, if there's something that I'm missing, please let me know in the comments. So to really express to the audience, I don't know everything, but what I do know, I will put out there. I try to put it out there in the most respectful and thoughtful way I possibly can. And so if you disagree with it after the way, and I've been trained to do this, right? So if I put it out there in the most respectful way, in the most thoughtful way, in the most full way, and you still have a problem with it, then that's you wanting to have a problem with whatever is said, not listening fully. Especially if I have to go back. First of all, I'm not going to go back with people in the comments, but I will respond to something. And if you still insist on going back and forth, you're not listening. 80% of communication is listening. So that's why I listen and I respond. And if somebody still wants to go back and forth, no, we're not going back and forth. As you're a guest in my house under my comments, no. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's my feed, my comments, my content. So if there's something you take issue with, you are free to go to your feed, to your comments, and to disagree in that way. But I guarantee that if you already are argumentative, you're not going to do it in a way that's productive or actually sheds light on the topic. I can guarantee that. So, and I lean on this, and I don't often, lean on this. I have a PhD and whatever, but I do because that's what my PhD is in. For most of my adult life, I have studied not just the media, but human communication. So it's going to be few and far between the people who can come and tell me, well, no, you're wrong on this, because that doesn't mean I'm always right, but I try to present things in a way that is right. And anybody who wants to argue is probably wants to argue. So, but it's fine to have a different opinion.
Dr. Tachi, love that. Love that. I agree with you 100%. I'm always trying to learn. If somebody disagrees with me, I am open to having a dialogue. I want to learn. Tell me, hey, I said something. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you're opening me to a whole nother world. My son will argue with me and he'll send me videos or this or that. And I learned one more thing. Okay, I'm a little better off because of it. But we don't have to be angry or mad or anything like that. Come on, Jason, if you want to answer that, come on. What do you do if somebody disagrees with what you say?
Like, look, I think I think here's something that happens often, right? Is somebody expresses an opinion, just like I just expressed an opinion about cruises, right? Somebody expresses an opinion, and what people hear is not that that person doesn't understand cruise culture or doesn't want to participate in or doesn't like cruises, right? What they hear is that person is saying cruises are bad, right? And it's sort of like it kind of it frustrates me often that people sort of take other people's opinions personally about not about them but about something that they like, right, or something that they enjoy. And I just like I think it's really important that we always like if you like something, just because somebody else doesn't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it, right? And B, remember and stand firm in your beliefs, your feelings, your opinions, and don't allow yourself to be so easily swayed or affected by the opinions of someone else, right? And I think that happens all the time, that people get really caught up in being upset about someone else's opinion about something that they like, where at the end of the day, if they kind of stopped and took a step back and thought about it, they would realize that that other person's opinion doesn't affect them at all, right? It doesn't negatively impact them at all. And that they actually have to just take a step back, take a breath, remember that someone else's opinion is just that, someone else's opinion, and they're entitled to it, just like you're entitled to like cruises and I'm entitled to not like cruises, and that's okay, right? Like, because I don't like cruises, you're not offended, right? I didn't attack people who go on cruises, and I didn't say cruises should be outlawed. I just said I don't want to go on a cruise, and that shouldn't be upsetting to anybody, right? So I think often people get caught up in their feelings about something. They don't like that someone else doesn't like something that they do like. They get caught up in their feelings about it, and then they forget that actually it's totally okay, right? Like, just like Dr. Tachi said, the first thing she said when you went to her was she said, okay, yeah, that's all it is. It's okay. It's okay for people to have differing opinions about things. It's okay for some people to like something and other people not to like something. In fact, I would argue not only is that okay, that's actually a good thing. It's good that we have differences in taste and likes and dislikes. It's what makes the world interesting. If we were all the same, if our opinions and feelings were all homogenous, what a boring place this would be, right? So like it's actually good that people have differing opinions. It's good that people have different takes on things and different likes and dislikes. It's a good thing. It makes the world interesting, and we should stop getting so upset about it.
I That was a beautiful take, man. I'm glad I have you as a co-host on not the smartest guys in the room. And thanks everybody for being back here today. We were gone a couple weeks, so we're talking about impact today. We talked about cruises. We talked about impact. We talked about my bad microphones earlier on. My Wi-Fi was all screwed up. Who knows what's going on here? Someday I'm gonna get a full lesson on tech. Dr. Tachi and Tom can come sit with me for like a week and set in on things. So, Tom, I think it's time for show and tell because I want to talk about things that I like today. So, what you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Is it a seashell? Please tell me it's not a seashell from your cruise.
No, but I collect a lot of weird things like that. But no, I don't have any. I don't have any current seashells in my house. So
Okay, good.
I'm going back to my roots here. I said I on that I'm on the cruise. I watched the Steelers with a bunch of people. I was screaming and yelling. I'm going to show something I've shown before, but in a different way. It's part of my collection. So if you're watching on the live stream, what you have to do to hear about what I'm talking about, otherwise I just have to detail it out, which I try to do in good storytelling form. So today I'm going to show you a terrible towel from the 2006 terrible towel is what we wave in Pittsburgh. This terrible towel is from when we won the Super Bowl in, I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, proud season ticket holder. This is what we take to the games. I will say, I had to schedule my cruise around Steeler home games. And last year I had to schedule a hernia surgery around Steeler home games because I love going to the game. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I waited 20 years for my tickets. If your terrible towel touches the ground. Like the worst is if you lose a terrible towel, like you go to a game and you lose one of your favorite towels. So I got one behind me. This one behind me was from 1995. I've shown before. I had to quit taking that to the games because I was scared I was going to drop it and lose it. So I had to move up to 2005 Super Bowl winning terrible towel. So Tom, so you need to get yourself, this is more not a cult. This is better than Cruise Community. This is my terrible towel that I take to the Steeler game. So that's what you got for show and tell today.
I like it. And that's the one that you take to the games like this season. You'll be taking that particular.
Yeah, I had to retire the other one, and I looked through good terrible towels, and you'll see here 2006 Super Bowl champion. So this is what I take. But like you'll see people dropping them on the way to the end of the game, and people are like, "Ah, you dropped your towel, you jinxed us," and stuff like that. So you really gotta be cautious with your carrying your towel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, I think you've got quite a collection of them too, right? Like
Oh yeah,
you got a whole bin full of terrible towels.
yeah, and I got pink ones. There's ones like when you go to the games, you can see ones that have like Snoop Dogg on them. There's ones with political parties on them. There's ones with Johnny Cash. I mean, you can find a terrible towel with any representation. And this week they're playing in Ireland, so there will be, Irish themed terrible towels and stuff like that. Yeah, so that is what I got. That's the community I want to be in, besides the cruise community and the community that makes a difference. That's what I got for you, Tom.
There you go. I like it. Well, I'm somewhat not that I would pursue this, but I'm a little bit jealous of like sort of your that kind of fandom and that community around the Steelers. And I like in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, it would be fun to make it out there for a game with you one of these years, and kind of experience the whole tailgate and the walk over to the stadium and that whole thing would be a ton of fun. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I think every franchise has a group of sort of dedicated diehard season ticket holder fans who are there for every home game, who tailgate every home game, who have a great time, rooting for their team every year, and really enjoy it. So I've been to a bunch of Giants games. I've been to other games, through the years. But yeah, one of these years, I'll when I make it back out to your neck of the woods again, I'll have to try to do it when we could go to when I could tag along for and experience the going to a Steelers home game. That would be a ton of fun. But yeah, no, I like it. I like the unique accessories that go along with Steeler fandom, right? The terrible towels. It's interesting. It's better than a cheese hat, I think.
I would wear it's definitely better than a cheese hat, but I think I would wear a cheese hat if I had to wear a cheese hat. Okay, so before we got some time here, we're gonna talk. Let's get tips. And can you have a tip for making an impact, whether it be personally or business? You want to talk about making an impact personally, or you want to talk about making an impact business wise? What do you think we should ask about?
I mean, look, I think the two go hand in hand,
Okay.
right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, like I say often, I don't have the time, the interest, or the energy to try to be anybody else other than who I am, right? And so whether I'm at work, if I have this hat on, or I'm in Nice, France for an Ironman, like I'm just me. I'm me everywhere I go, every hour of the day. This is who I am. And so the impact that I have on the world, I think whether it's in through my personal interactions or through my business interactions is relatively consistent in terms of the kind of impact that I want to create because I'm me everywhere I go. So yeah, so I think the two go hand in hand personally. Like that's my opinion.
Okay, that's a really good answer. I live in this world of all I can be is the best me I can be. So trying trying to be anybody else. Like here, I'm going to talk to you about the Steelers. It's what I'm going to talk to you about cruises. It's me. And if I tried to talk to you about other things and things I didn't, here's what here's. But at the same point, I live by like if in business, if, like we talked about already, inspiration, positivity, and smiles. I believe if I am sharing those things, if I am putting that out into the world in anything that I'm doing, whether it's time with my family, oh, that's pretty much that. If I'm at the Steeler game with my friends and cheering for who I love, it's that. If I'm climbing the rock wall, it's that. If I'm spending time with my wife, it's that. And you won't find me doing things that aren't that. That's just who I am. And so if something doesn't fit with that, sometimes you catch yourself. You're all of a sudden in a world and you're like, wait a minute. I'm looking around, look around and you see that and you see that and you see that. And you're like, wait, I don't want to be right here, right now. And you have a choice to leave, exit, walk away, not associate with those kind of people. That's what I do. If I find myself in a situation that really, this isn't who I want to be, I do my best to step away from it so I can live in that other world that makes me happy. Dr. Tachi, a final thought on that. How do you, as a business, a person, a tip, what do you got for us? Make an impact. So today, Tom, you have to wrap up your thumbs up and thumbs down. You gave a thumbs down to cruises. We talked about making an impact. We talked about making a difference. So, Tom, we talked about you swallowing. If somebody goes back and listens to the replay, we talked about you swallowing a bunch of water in the Mediterranean Sea. So, bring it all home for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, so, I think maybe I'll just talk about this for a second. I'll talk about the impact that my trip to France and participating in the Ironman World Championships has had or will continue to have on me, right? So, I for anybody who doesn't know, who isn't connected with me on social media, I went to France. That's why we were off for the last 2 weeks. I went to France to participate in the Ironman World Championships. I qualified last year in September at my race in Maryland, and this year got to go and actually race in that event in Nice, France. And it was the swim did not. The day started out not going great from a racing perspective. I got into the Mediterranean. It was the first time I'd ever done an ocean swim in an Ironman, which posed some unique challenges. My goggles fogged up a little bit. I didn't swallow any water, but I did get some Mediterranean up my nose. I said in one of my social media posts that I accidentally neti potted with the Mediterranean, and I do not recommend doing that. It's not pleasant. But then my goggles also fogged up later in the swim, and I was having some trouble with sighting because I'm not used to swimming in a body of water that has large swells. And so if you don't time your sighting right, when you pick your head up to look and see if you're going in the right direction, you can't see any of the buoys you're looking for because you're down in between two of the swells in the Mediterranean Sea. So that was a challenge. So the swim was difficult. Got out of the water from the swim, got onto the bike, and it was the hardest bike course I've ever ridden. It is widely considered to be the most difficult bike course in all of Ironman racing. It has about 8,000 feet of climbing. So for anybody in the sort of in the Northeast, that is equivalent to riding from sea level up to the top of Mount Washington, which is the highest mountain in the Northeast. It's a little over 6,000 feet, and then going another 1,500 to 1,600 feet on top of that. And then riding to the top of the Empire, the top of the Freedom Tower in New York, right? That's the equivalent, essentially, of how much vertical gain there is on the bike ride. But it's also gorgeous. So the bike was taking me forever. It was incredibly slow, much slower than I expected it to be. And there was a point where I had to just sort of have a little conversation with myself. And the conversation that I had to have with myself was, I push. Do I just put my head down and work hard and push hard and try to go faster? Or do I pick my head up? Do I look around and do I take in this experience, a once in a lifetime experience for me to ride my bike through the Maritime Alps in France on the same route that they use for the Tour de France, to ride through these tiny mountain towns and have local kids out at the end of their driveways cheering us on, yelling "Ale, ale, ale," which in French means "go, go, go," right? As we cycle through their towns, the same way they do for the Tour de France riders when they ride through town. Like, do I take that experience in? Do I live that experience? Do I enjoy those moments? Or do I put my head down and push and try to go faster? And I opted for the former. I opted to drink that in, that once in a lifetime experience, because quite literally, the Ironman World Championships is not going to be happening in Nice anymore. It's going back to Kona for both the men and the women. And so it was the last time, probably at least for the next decade, that that race will take place, and it may never take place there again. So it was quite literally a once in a lifetime experience. And I decided to just pick my head up and enjoy it. It was the most beautiful bike ride I'd ever been on. And I enjoyed all 7+ hours of it. That's how long it took. So then I got off the bike and I started running, and I wasn't trying to run fast because at that point, my time for the race was already kind of blown up. I wasn't trying to run fast. And I was walking through one of the aid stations and I struck up a conversation with another guy who was walking, and he was having some hip trouble. Turned out he was from Ottawa in Canada. So we started talking about Ironman Ottawa that I did in August. And I walked with him for over an hour. We just walked, two strangers walking together on the along the promenade in Nice, just talking about Ironman and the world and our experiences and all kinds of different things for over an hour. His name was Marcel. I said goodbye to Marcel, and I decided to run it in for the last 5K and finish the race running. And so that's what I did. It was the slowest Ironman I've ever done. It was also probably one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had in a race. And so what I take away from that, the impact that that race will have on me, is that when I choose to do hard things, when I choose to challenge myself, I should always remember to enjoy the experiences that that creates for me, right? To enjoy the moments along that journey and not just try to push through to get to the destination, right? That's the impact that that race is going to have on me. That's the impact that I will carry with me going forward, is to always remember to pick my head up, to look around, and to make sure I enjoy things. I even quoted Ferris Bueller in one of my social media posts. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around every once in a while, you just might miss it. And I think those words held very true for me in Nice at the World Championship, and hopefully I will remember them going forward, and that's the lasting impact that that race will have on me. So that's all I got for today, Dom. I hope that did a good job of wrapping things up for you. I still got a thumbs down on cruising. Sorry, not sorry. That's my opinion. If you like cruises, good for you. You won't catch me on one. So anyway, that's all I got for this week. For myself, for Dom, and for his terrible towel. This is not the smartest guys in the room. We appreciate you guys being here with us every week. We appreciate you guys being part of this community, being part of the conversation. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And until then, have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. We love you guys. Bye-bye.